people see being fat as a pejorative rather than, oh my gosh, look at what a miracle your body is doing to keep you alive.
You are 100% correct. And like, actually, so it does drive hormones. It creates leptin resistance, and leptin is a hormone that that tells you that you're full. And when you give fructose, it blocks that, so you stay hungry. And we proved that in our animals by giving them leptin and showing that they didn't respond to leptin. Normally, if you get leptin, you eat less. And likewise, you know, it stimulates little hormones like cortisol and glucagon, all these things that can drive metabolic syndrome. So, you know, so this was one of the first thing that we figured out was that fructose activates the switch. And then the second thing we figured out was that it wasn't just the fructose that you eat. And I thank you, Jimmy. Jimmy, I thank you. That was a fantastic thing that you said to me. And it really, really made a difference to our research. Once we figured out that high glycemic carbs were the problem, along with fructose, suddenly it made sense because why these keto diets really, really work so well. And why low carb diets work, because you're removing the two main players that are driving this switch, glucose and fructose. But we did discover, I do think I want to tell you this because I think your listeners will like this because it was a big discovery. It happened only in the last couple of years. But what we discovered was that there was another way to activate this switch. And that way was through mild dehydration, not severe dehydration. If you're dehydrated and you are, you know, yeah, good move. Good move. If you're a little bit dehydrated, that's where you get into trouble. If you're severely dehydrated, you're too sick to eat, you know, you don't feel good. But if you're just mildly dehydrated, it actually stimulates fat gain and food intake. And the easiest way to do that is with salt. Now, salt's a controversial player, and I've studied salt a long time. You know, there is definitely a relationship of salt intake with blood pressure, but it's not with everybody. So a lot of people eat salt. Young people can eat salt. There's no problem with it.
Salt quality matters too, right, Rick? Like if you get a better, like I love Redmond sea salt. I love that company. I love their product. They're not a sponsor. I just love them. I got a big tub on my fridge right now that I put it on everything, and especially when I'm fasting. Well, that's like my gold when I'm fasting.
Advice on that's going to be good. At least I'm pretty sure. So anyway, so salt. It turns out that not everybody's sensitive to salt in terms of blood pressure. And you have some changes in your kidney that makes you hold on to salt in order for that to be a problem. So older people, people with kidney disease and so forth are more sensitive to salt.
A lot of people ask me, Jimmy, how do you get such good deep sleep? Well, there's a lot of things that I do, but one of the newest things that I recently added is this upgraded magnesium from a company called Upgraded Formulas. Go to their website, upgradedformulas.com, and you can learn all about this nano technology that they use for this particular mineral of magnesium. Again, it's called Upgraded Magnesium, and it's got all the different forms of magnesium in it using the nanotechnology, so it gets absorbed a lot better. Guys, I have seen my deep sleep improve by as much as 30 to 40% simply by adding in this product along with sunshine exposure, darkness in the room, cooler temperature, all of the things that I always have done. So again, upgradedformulas.com is the website. Go check them out.
But here's what we found out. When you eat salty food, it increases the salt concentration in your blood, and it acts sort of like a mild dehydration. And what it does is it signals the enzymes that convert glucose to fructose. It activates the process that changes glucose to fructose. Now, if you're on a low carb diet and you're eating salt, you know you have to have the glucose to be converted to fructose. So if you're not eating any carbs at all, you're sort of safe, and you can eat a salty diet fairly fairly fine. But if you're eating a very salty diet and you're eating carbs with it, like French fries,
Yeah.
all activates the enzymes that convert glucose to fructose, and that with the high glucose, it's kind of it really drives it. So it turns out that a lot of people who are eating salty foods, they can increase their risk for obesity. And it's just been recognized in the last few years that salty foods can increase the risk for obesity. And we actually did studies, and we found that, like in the Japanese population, where they eat a lot of salt, that the people who eat the highest salt are at increased risk for diabetes and so forth. And then we went on and we gave salt to animals, and for several months nothing happened. And then suddenly they became super fat and they became super insulin resistant. And what we found was that they had triggered this enzyme so that they could make fructose from glucose very easily. And so even though they weren't on a high carb diet, but they were on carbs, they started becoming obese. And we think that this is a second mechanism.
Wow.
Now, the fantastic thing about this, my friend, is that if you give water to block the thirst response, and that actually keeps the salt concentrations normal, you can block the effects of salt. And what's more, you can even, yes, drink water, man, because when you drink that water, you're keeping the salt concentrations in the normal range, and you don't activate this process. So if you drink water, in fact, we gave water to animals that were on sugar. And if you give them enough water, you can block this response, because the sugar actually also causes some dehydration. And it turns out there's a hormone called vasopressin that's turned on. And that hormone's high in people who are overweight. And if you suppress that hormone, you can treat obesity. So it turns out that old wives' tale, actually, we don't call it a wives' tale, but we call it an old tale that, you should drink 8 glasses of water a day, that we learned, when we were little. That's wise. That is really wise, because if you drink water and keep the salt concentrations down, you can really block obesity and help it. So now you can over drink water.
Right.
You can become intoxicated on water, and that's
right.
bad. So don't go out and drink 20 glasses of water, or you're going to get into trouble. You're going to end up in an emergency room.
Yeah, there's a popular program out there right now. There's a popular program, Richard, out there called 75 Hard. And one of the protocols in that program is drink a gallon of water a day. Now, I don't know what that equates to in terms of glasses, but a gallon of water seems like a lot for some people.
Well, you don't want to drink it all at once.
No.
But over the course of a day, if you could drink 8 glasses of water, that's good.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of one of my messages. By the way, I enjoy watching you jumping in these, into the ice. And
yeah.
So this is really, actually, it's an interesting thing, because cold, as you probably are doing this for, can stimulate energy or stimulate metabolism. And
that's what I'm trying. I'm trying for that.
I thought you were a polar bear the first time I saw you jump in there.
I do make it easy, don't I, Richard? Yeah. So, hey, I want to go back to French fries for a second. Yeah. Because not only do you get the carbohydrate, which you've already articulated, that kind of starchy carb has a process in the body that makes it into fructose, which makes it fattening. Then you add in the processed salt, which is going to be man-made salt, not a real salt that you would buy like the Redmond's or pink Himalayan sea salt. But then the third element, and I wonder if you have any information about this, is the seed oils that they cook it in. We know how inflammatory those are. And with the inflammation, it must be obesogenic. Have you looked at that impact on all this as well?
I've read about it and I can talk about it, but personally, I haven't studied that in the lab. But I do have friends who've studied it. But before I just talk about that for 1 minute, I just want to mention that when you inject, a lot of these groups, when they make this, put the processed food out, they'll inject the meat with salt water, and it makes the meat look bigger than it is. It's
chicken, especially chicken. Yeah.
And they do it to shrimp. And
Yes.
so when you buy these shrimp that have been injected with salt water, they look big and they look huge. You put them on the frying pan and they shrivel up little things because the water goes up, but the salt stays in. So you get all that crappy, you get the salt. You don't want the salt. And, so it's a trick. But they also, there's a lot of oils and mineral, vegetable oils and stuff that are put in. And there's more and more data that these polyunsaturated fats, there's two types, omega-3 and omega-6. And omega-3 are good guys, and they actually block the effects of fructose. I have a collaborator who gave omega-3, and he could block the effects of fructose on the brain. And by the way, when fructose works on the brain, animals like rats have trouble wandering through a maze correctly. They get lost. They take longer times. I mean, they're like in trouble.
Well, our president likes eating ice cream right now, and I wonder if there's I'm just kidding.
I like cream too, Jimmy. There's a low carb ice cream that I really like, and I don't have any.
Is it Rebel?
There's this one called Breyer's low carb ice cream that's made with maltitol, and it's really, you don't like it?
No, the taste is good. Look, Rick, the taste is good, but maltitol gives me explosive pants. I don't need that anytime soon. There's actually a better one out there I'm going to recommend to you called Rebel, Rebel, and they sell it in little pints and many different flavors. It's a better keto ice cream if you like keto.
Because you're right, maltitol in many people, luckily not me, but in many people it is degraded in the gut and causes diarrhea and stuff. But anyway, sugar can affect mentation. Animals fed fructose will have trouble going through a maze. And you can block those effects with omega-3 fatty acids, the ones that are like in walnut oil. And so there's some kinds of fats that are good fats, but the omega-6 seem to be bad. And, there's a lot of people writing about it. And they're more like they cause inflammation.
Yes.
I'm not a big fan of the omega-6 group.
Although they are essential when they're naturally occurring. I think the problem with the seed oils, the vegetable oils, is they're highly processed. I encourage people always to go to YouTube, look up the video, How Canola Oil is Made. It's the grossest process. There's deodorizers and cleansers, and you just kind of go, and they have to do all that to make it fit for human consumption, and that's healthy. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I tend to like olive oil. Are you an olive?
Yes. Olive oil, avocado oil,
saturated fat. But yeah, and saturated fats. I do like saturated fats, but it's true. I don't want to make it a huge percent of my diet. But obviously, some people have argued that it's okay.
Well, I think it's bio-individual. I think it depends on the person. There's so many genetic tests out there now too, Richard, that some people do better with maybe a slightly higher saturated fat, not the preponderance of your calories, but a good percentage of them. And while there's others with like the ApoE genotype, some of those people need to go lower in the saturated fat and more on the monounsaturated fats to get the benefits to their health. So again, the whole one size fits all to fix all of our weight and health issues has never been right.
Exactly. You're totally right. But I do think that this general pathway of fructose metabolism is very relevant pretty much to everybody, and how you engage it. We should be aware of it, and the high glycemic carbs and sugar really are driving a lot of this. Now, interestingly, we found that there's ways that people can become more sensitive to sugar there's ways that they can become more sensitive to high glycemic carbs.